B'Shem Hashem Naaseh v'Natzliach, Shir Torah, Bruchim Habayim. We're back here Tuesday night. Ikvita the Mashiach series. We are up to number 33. Tonight, B'ezrat Hashem, will be a very interesting shiur. Lots of sources, lots of interesting things, also connecting to this week's Torah portion and Torah obligation of Limchot et Amalek. Tonight's shiur, B'ezrat Hashem, will be for a refuah shlema for Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Liora bat Avraham, Esther bat Tzipora, Abigail bat Surya, Yitro ben Avraham, Talia bat Sarah, Serach bat Batya, Orit bat Ilana, Yosef Yitzchak ben Baila Rachel, and David ben Esriya, Doris bat Jora, and also for a Atzlacha Rabba for Shaul ben Farzane, Oshri ben Doris, Gabi ben Doris, Elad ben Doris, David ben Esriya, Marsha bat Julie, Ayla bat Marsha, Samuel ben Marsha, Alexander ben Marsha, and all of Am Yisrael, especially the ones that are helping us to do all the wonderful things that we're doing. Baruch Hashem, a lot of good things happening, lots of stuff moving. We have the movie is moving along. One of the things that B'ezrat Hashem we're working on right now is translating the movie to multiple languages. We are more than halfway done with the translations. B'ezrat Hashem. So I mean, the people that are contributing for the Tikkun HaBRIT movie, sometimes they ask me, what, if the movie was already made, what's the money for? As I've mentioned several times, the money is to market the movie to every single corner in the world. We're going to try to use every single tool we've learned over the last 7 years of doing Kiruv and 25, 30 years or so of doing business to make sure that this movie literally reaches every single corner in the world. At the very least, gives every Jew, needless to say, every human being an opportunity to see it. So whether it's advertising on the internet, advertising with DVDs, the B'ezrat Hashem will print also with paper cards on the app. A lot of different strategies and ideas that we're coming up with. We're also building, Baruch Hashem, a unique website that's going to be launched alongside with the movie. The website is going to be like something you've never seen before in the Torah world, but you have seen before in Hollywood. This B'ezrat Hashem will put us in the upper echelon of technology in the Torah world, B'ezrat Hashem, which Zek Neged Ze Bara Elokim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created everything with an opposite. So while Hollywood is destroying the world, B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to use the tools that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us to rebuild whatever is available to be rebuilt. So a lot of things are going to happening with this movie. Anyone that contributes to the movie is going to be partner in all of it. And if that's not enough, also they should know that while we're saying we're going to publish it to the four corners of the world, it's not just to English speakers anymore. It's going to be to people that speak different languages. Right now, we have a translation team putting subtitles in French, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, Hebrew, I believe Turkish, Indonesian, Korean, German, Russian, and I believe I may be forgetting one or two other languages. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of at least 10 languages. B'ezrat Hashem will merit to translate it to 70 languages, just like Moshe Rabbeinu was commanded by HaKadosh Baruch Hu to translate the Torah to 70 languages. Point being is to give mankind an opportunity to fulfill the ultimate tikkun of the last generation, which Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said in the Zohar Kadosh, it's Tikkun HaBRIT. to rectify this. The Brit is not just to have a Brit Milah, and it's not just to stop being promiscuous physically, but also in the mind. Once you see this movie, you'll get a lot more of what we mean. We have, Be'ezrat Hashem, another trailer coming out shortly, probably in the next couple of days. We'll be releasing a brand new trailer. This trailer is different than the first two in a sense that it's discussing the work that came with this movie, the production, the things that are included in it. It's going to be one of those things that you've never seen before. I know I've watched many different films in the Torah world before, and I've never seen such a thing. Be'ezrat Hashem, this is something that anyone that is going to invest in it, especially those that invest generously in it and make it something that they really truly want to be a part of, I could assure you, you're literally you're reserving yourself a place in Olam HaBa as a result of what's going to happen from this movie. Now, of course, with everything that you do good in the world and are able to help people get closer to Hashem, the Satan fights and tries to do whatever he can in order to slow you down, in order to cool you down, in order to do anything possible. So of course, you should know that this is the time where there's a lot more tests than typical, and there's already, Baruch Hashem, our own fair share of tests that we get on a daily basis. But lately, it's been an interesting new record, and from all types of things. But Be'ezrat Hashem, Kadosh Baruch Hu gives us a test, but He also gives us the tools to overcome them. The key is to make sure that when you are trying to do everything possible to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you always remember that you're doing it for Him. You're doing it for you to sanctify His name. You're doing it to help a bunch of His children that you don't even know come back to Him. You're doing it for the people that He created to come back to Him. You're doing it for all of those reasons. You're not doing it for yourself. You're not doing it to flex your spiritual or physical muscles or financial muscles. You're doing it for Him. And as long as you have that in mind, you're bound to win, despite the difficulties and sometimes even the small losses. But needless to say, the times are not easy, but we keep going because we have the Torah. Barati Yetzara, Barati Torah Tavlin. The Gemara in Masechet Brachot says, just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the Yetzara, who is enormous, who's a genius, who is extremely powerful, He also created some potion that's going to destroy him, which is the Torah. What does it mean, the Torah? Use the learnings of the Torah that you have, both the learning itself and what you learn, in order to overcome the Yetzirah. One of the things, like I just said, is to always make sure that you're doing everything for the sake of heaven and not for the sake of your own ego. So, Baruch Hashem, this gives us the strength to continue. This gives us the ability to continue building our bitachon, our emunah, because you're seeing things happen before your eyes, and instead of wasting your time scratching your head, like many people do, why is this happening to me? Why is it? You just move on and just continue doing things. And I'll give you a small example. Sometimes you have people that are very passionate about Hashem. They're very passionate about Torah, or at least they say they do. And they're so passionate, they forget it's about Hashem. They're so passionate, they forget about Torah, and they start making it their own. So sometimes we have different people that have been either employees or volunteers in our team that, showed a lot of passion, and, you want to try to contain that passion. But sometimes what you see is that when you try to contain some of that passion, the real ugly face comes out. The real ugly face comes out, and you see that everything that they did was really for the sake of ego. Everything they did was really for the sake of notoriety and kavod and so on, and they do silly things. And one of the things that just happened a few days ago is one of these people that literally just gave up their Olam HaBa, decided to shut down our website. So many of you may have noticed it, or may not have noticed it. I don't know how often you visit our website, but one of our websites was shut down for a little while. Why? Because this person decided to log on the site and just delete the whole thing. Ishtabach shimo lahad. So you look at this, it's a early afternoon and you have a present, gifted to you, Ishtabach shimo. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just like He created the Ra, He also created the Tov. And we were able to get back up and running within a matter of a few hours without really thinking about it, too much. But again, it gives you a little bit of an idea. And the reason why I say these things is because it's always important to know that it's not just about talking about Reshaim and calling them out and saying that this guy's wicked and that guy's wicked and you shouldn't listen to him and you shouldn't listen to her. It's not just about calling out the Reshaim, but it's also to remind ourselves not to be like them. It's also to remind ourselves not to be Reshaim. That's really one of the biggest lessons you have to learn. And unfortunately, sometimes people forget that, where they like to insult, yell, scream at other people, thinking that that makes them better, but in reality, many times they're no different than the people that they're insulting, but that sometimes is a little bit blurry. So you see all of these things within time, and one of the things we're going to discuss that Rav Wasserman brings up is in essence dealing with Reshaim. Dealing with these Reshaim, but we're not talking about the Reshaim that live, somewhere in your community, or the Reshaim that live on a screen somewhere where you see their videos popping up here and there, or the Reshaim that perhaps live, that you went to school with many years ago, but you haven't seen. No, we're talking about dealing with the Reshaim that are in your life, your friends, family, and so on and so forth. Partners in business and otherwise, how to deal with those. Who are these people? How can we manage to elevate ourselves to become tzaddikim if we have so many reshaim around us? This is one of the $1 million questions that many people ask, and the answer may or may not surprise you, but Be'ezrat Hashem will bring you all the sources to help that. Before we do that, just give you a little bit of a public notice announcement, public service announcement. People sometimes ask me, if Baruch Hashem, we have unusual hours, so sometimes you'll get a text response from us at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, and it asks, what do you do? So right now, one of the things you'll see me doing, if you get a response from me at 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, is that right now we have a campaign. That's the Purim 5781 campaign. Now, this Purim 5781 campaign I mentioned to you briefly. There's a 3 major mitzvot for Purim. Aside from the known of having a meal and reading and hearing the Megillah, there's also the machatzita shekel, which is to give a third of the price of the silver to the poor. This year, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of around $10. Give or take, silver goes up, down, but long story short, it's somewhere around price $10 for each family member. So whether it's a toddler or it's an adult, every single member has to give machatzita shekel. We learn this from the Torah itself. This is a biblical mitzvah where HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Am Yisrael to give machatzita shekel in Parashat Truma. Some people have the custom of giving 3 machatzita shekels, meaning 3 times 10, $30 per person, because it's a special sgula, because the verse itself that talks about Truma mentions the word Truma 3 times. So this is money that you give to the poor. And one of the things we've done over the years is we've helped people by taking the money that they're going to give anyway, if they want to fulfill this mitzvah, and giving it to real poor people that we know that also happen to be avrichim in kolel, talmidei chachamim, tzaddikim, and not just some homeless guy in the street that may or may not be on drugs when you give it to him. So this money we give to poor people we know in Eretz Yisrael. The second mitzvah is matanot le'evyonim, which is gifts to the poor. Each adult needs to give a gift to the poor. We discussed this a little bit more or less last lecture that we had. You can get away with giving as little as 20 shekels in Eretz Yisrael. In America, probably $20, or some say a little more, a little less. Point being is, that money is supposed to buy the person a festive meal for Purim. And as we all know, there's no festive meal coming for $20. So what we've decided to do is that we decided that we're going to give each family 500 shekels, somewhere in the neighborhood of about $170, $180. If you include some of the transaction costs of, moving the money around from place to place and so on. So it's about 500 shekels is the average we're going to give each family. Some families will get more because they're bigger families or there's a much bigger need. They're unfortunately destitute. The stories that we deal with are atrocious, to say the least. Having people call me crying saying that, listen, please help such and such family. I said, okay, just give me the name. No, but you don't understand. You have to help them. I said, okay, fine, I'll help them. What's why are you calling me at 4 o'clock in the morning? Sending me a message at 4 o'clock in the morning crying. I'll help. No, you don't understand. I just saw their 7-year-old son begging for change because he wanted to buy bamba for a shekel. Okay, now I understand why you call me at 4 o'clock in the morning, my time, 11 o'clock your time, because that is a traumatizing experience, not only for you, but for the kid itself. 7-year-old kid is begging for a shekel because he wants to buy bamba because his parents are so poor, they can't afford a shekel to buy a snack. In America, it's the equivalent of potato chips or pretzels. So the poverty in Eretz Yisrael is horrendous. Anyone that was struggling before Corona is much worse than you can imagine today. And the government is not doing much at all to help them. So each and every single person needs to assess whether they're going to be the one that helps or not. Some people can just fulfill the mitzvah and get away with just sending $20. And some people will, that can do more will say, listen, I can afford a lot more than $20. I could send 20,000. Well, if you're going to do that, then do that sooner rather than later, because we need to give them the money already in order to get the supermarkets and so on going. So because we knew we don't know how much people are going to send or whether they're going to send or not, but we do know one thing for sure: the people are poor and the people are struggling. So we already sent $50,000, about 150,000 shekels already, and out of the 50,000, we raised, I think, about 1,500. So we're short a little bit. So we sent the money already. These, people ask me what I do in the middle of the night. These are some of the receipts that I get when you send, 30,000 shekels here, another 17,000 shekels here, and then we'll also have the supermarkets. Baruch Hashem have become our good friends, so we buy a lot of stuff from them to get the merchandise from them, so we can get one of our team members to arrange baskets of food to literally make a festive meal. So you have, they can't, sometimes they're limited with how much they can charge. So you have the same supermarket charge you $1,500, 6, 7, 8, 10 times in a row, just to make sure that the transaction goes through. And you see there's papers and papers and papers and papers. And because we're doing it all over the place, we have in Eretz Yisrael, we have in Yerushalayim, Bnei Brak, Netanya, Tel Zion, several places. So far we've committed, we have enough that we sent for 300 families. 300 families is what that $50,000 will do. We'd like to do 3,000 families, but what we could afford right now, and still give us the ability to have enough for to continue functioning and doing the other things we need to do for Pesach, is 300 families. So if new people are coming, a few people actually called me today saying that they need another 4 families. I don't know if we're going to be able to do it unless we raise a lot more money. But the point being is that there is no shortage of needy. There's no shortage of needy. And each and every person needs to fulfill this mitzvah. Jews need to fulfill this mitzvah for Purim. And it's much more important. If you look at the campaign that we have, the Rambam paskins that it's much more important to spend money, more money, on the matanot le'evyonim, on the gifts to the poor, to give them a festive meal, then on the mishloach manot that people give to their friends and spend $80, $100, $200 on mishloach manot because they want to get their friend a nice gift, a wine, and that's all great. But if that $100 is going to kill your budget and you're only going to be able to end up giving $50 or $20 for matanot le'evyonim, you got it confused. You got it confused. It's better you give your friend $20 give him a little cake and a drink, and give the rest of the money to the poor people that actually need it, because your friend lives in a $500,000 house. He doesn't need the food. It's just, showing unity. So again, sometimes you have to know that there are many mitzvot in the Torah, but there's also a priority. There's a priority. And that time to think about what the priority is every day, but needless to say right now. So anyone that wants to help is welcome to help. Anyone who doesn't, make sure you fulfill the mitzvah elsewhere, because if you don't fulfill the mitzvah, you're missing out on opportunities to serve Hashem. You're in essence pretty much not celebrating the holiday. So with that being said, we have one of the things that happens during Purim is that Am Yisrael gets to fulfill the mitzvah of not only doing tshuva but also destroying Amalek. Who's Amalek? Haman is Amalek. So there's a special mitzvah to do tshuva during Purim and during the time of Purim, and needless to say, there's a special mitzvah of destroying Amalek. Now, Amalek is not just a person. Amalek is not just a nation. Amalek is a thought process. Amalek is an ideology. And this week, we have a biblical commandment to hear after reading the parasha, we have to, the Baal Koreh will go to Parashat Ki Titzeh on Shabbat, and he's going to read several verses from that parasha that you have a biblical commandment to listen to it. Okay, so this is extremely important for people to fulfill. It's actually something that a lot of people perhaps don't even know how important it is. It's even more important than listening to the Megillah. So it's a critical mitzvah. Now, of course, you still have to listen to the Megillah. One doesn't replace the other. But the point being is, a lot of people think that listening to Megillah is important. It is. But this is even more important, even though it's shorter. Why? Because if a person listens to it and delves over what is being said here, he could literally understand the ideology required from a Jew in this world, just from these verses. And what is this? What do the verses say? In Parashat Ki Titzeh, chapter 25, verse number 17, 18, and 19. זכור את אשר עשה לך עמלק בדרך בצאתכם ממצרים, אשר קרך בדרך ויזנב בך כל הנחשלים אחריך ואתה עייף ויגע ולא ירא אלוהים. והיה בהניח אדוני אלוהיך לך מכל אויביך מסביב בארץ אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך נחלה לרשתה, תמחה את זכר עמלק מתחת השמיים לא תשכח. Translation. Remember what Amalek did to you on the way when you were leaving Egypt. Anyone who doesn't know, when we left Egypt, the miraculous exile from Egypt, destroying the biggest civilization in the world, Hashem, 10 plagues, split the ocean into 12, one for each tribe, fruits coming out of the ground, everyone's having a glorious time singing the word of Hashem. Even the babies that were still in their mother's belly were singing, and you were able to see them because literally the bellies became, the Midrash says, see-through. Not that anyone else saw it, but the babies were able to see out and point to Hashem saying, Ze li ve'anveu, this is my God and I will sanctify him. So a lot of amazing things happened. Yetziat Mitzrayim. The whole world heard about it. It wasn't just the Egyptians and the Jews. The whole world heard about it, but yet Amalek decided, Now is the time to attack. Now, out of all times, to attack the Jewish people, to attack Am Yisrael, now out of all times, this is what they did. They went and this is what happened to us. That he, meaning it's Amalek, happened upon you. Asher kacha b'derech. What has happened upon you? Well, this is, Rashi says, one of the character traits. This happened upon you is one of the character traits, one of the places we learn about the character traits of Amalek. To know that it's not just a people, but rather an ideology. Asher kacha b'derech, that he happened upon you on the way, and he struck those of you who were hindmost, all the weaklings at your rear, when you were faint and exhausted, and he did not fear God. It shall be that when Hashem your God gives you rest from all your enemies, all around, in the land that Hashem your God gives you as an inheritance to possess it, you shall wipe out the memory of Amalek from under the heaven. You shall not forget. Here we see that when it comes to Amalek, there are two biblical mitzvot. Two biblical mitzvot. One, wipe out Amalek, wipe out anything that is relevant to Amalek, sins, ideology, mentality, and so on, as well as the people when we know who they are. Today we don't know who Amalek is, as far as there's no nation of Amalek that's walking around, but you can tell who Amalek is relatively quickly if you look at the Zohar, which talks about who are Amaleks. And we're going to go over that in a second, because Rashi also says, who's Amalek? You shall not forget. Meaning, don't think that this is something that was supposed to happen just at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. It's written in the Torah for you today, in the year 5781 or 2021 according to the Gregorian calendar. This is a mitzvah for you to fulfill today. Don't forget. Don't forget. So now, Rabotai Yikarim, we see that this Amalek had a very similar trait that Christianity had. Why Christianity had? Christianity started with who? With the weaklings and the illiterates and the elders among Am Yisrael who did not know better, and thereby that's who they took into their camp to become Christians without them even knowing they're becoming Christians many times. That's why in the beginning of Christianity, anyone that knows the real history knows that in the beginning of Christianity, the Notzrim, the Christians, were in essence viewed as those that observe the mitzvot, not forsake the mitzvot. So it looked very similar to Judaism, thereby making it very difficult for some people to tell the difference. That's why some of the Chachamim came together a few hundred years later and sent one of the Chachamim in there to corrupt Christianity in a sense of creating a significant difference between Christianity and Judaism. And that's when Catholicism was born, with obviously switching the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. No more Pesach, no more this, no more nothing, no more mitzvot. So initially Christianity was one thing, later on it got corrupted into something completely different. Obviously it was corrupt from the beginning because it was all based on a false belief that a human can be God. But needless to say, how did they get power? How did they get started with all of this? They took advantage of the weaklings. Does that mean that all Christians are Amalek? Not necessarily. Not necessarily, but surely some of them are. We know that the Nazis many of them were religious fanatics that were Amalek as well. But that's not the only thing that it says. It also says that one thing in common that these Amalek have is that they do not fear God. No yirat shamayim. So from here, the Chachamim tell us, anyone that disdains, dislikes yirat shamayim, that's a sign of Amalek. That's a sign of Amalek, which means some members of Amalek, and unfortunately it seems like it's a large group, are Jewish people. Are Jewish people, are Amalek. They're called also the Erev Rav. And we have a couple of shurim about the Erev Rav based on the Zohar and many, many other sources that we did a few years ago. Highly recommended to watch that video. Who is Erev Rav is one video, I think it's called. Another one is maybe you are Erev Rav or are you Erev Rav. There's a couple of videos where we brought many sources, including the Zohar, where we see that Erev Rav has one thing in common, which is they not only don't have fear of Hashem, they hate it. They hate fear of Hashem. They hate the concept of fear of Hashem. They hate the teachings of fear of Hashem. It's not that they are just there and they don't want to talk about fear of Hashem. They rather talk about Hasidic stories, like people like to say. No, it's not just that. It's rather that they cannot coexist with someone who teaches Yirat Shamayim. So they have to disturb them, they have to cause them damage, they have to do everything possible. And of course, every single person that we have exposed over the years is one of those people, is one of those Erev Rav Amaleks. Every single one, no exception. And of course, there's many others. There's many others we haven't mentioned. But the point being is, they all have that in common. They all make fun of Yirat Shamayim, even though the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, Masechet Brachot, and many other tractates in the Gemara and in the Sifrei Chachamim, the Rishonim and the Achronim, says Yirat Hashem I Otzaro. Fear of the Almighty, that's his treasure. That's the treasure. So much so that the Gemara says Hashem only created the world in order for you to fear him. When we learned this from Mount Sinai, we went there and everybody died. And Moshe Rabbeinu, after Hashem resurrected them twice because they died twice, they said, we'll do whatever he says. You just go talk to him, and because if we continue hearing his voice, we're going to die. Moshe Rabbeinu says to them, no, the whole message here is that he's scaring you in order to make sure that you don't sin. You know what you're dealing with. Meaning that Hashem's strategy, number one strategy, of communicating to his people is by scaring them. Why? That is the number one motivation that inspires people to do things. Inspires not just Jewish people. Humanity at large operates based on fear. But unfortunately, what people don't realize is that while these naysayers will always say, no, you shouldn't teach fear of the Almighty, you shouldn't teach fear of God, you should teach love, the God of love, God loves everyone, everybody's going to heaven, all this mumbo jumbo, ridiculous teachings. Why is it ridiculous? Because if you tell them, listen, you shouldn't speed here, because if you do, there's a sign over there that says you're going to get a traffic ticket and maybe go to jail. Oh, thank God, thank you for letting me know. Oh, but you got scared? That's why you're stopping? Yeah. So how come you're not yelling at me for scaring you? No, because I know you're scaring me in order to warn me. They don't have a problem with being scared of disease. They don't have a problem being scared of a traffic ticket. They don't have a problem of someone teaching, scaring of a lot of other things, politics, money, poverty, and so on and so forth. When it comes to fear of the Almighty, the only fear you're actually allowed to have, because everything else is false fear, you're only allowed to have fear of the Almighty, that's what they go against, i.e. the reason why they are Amalek, because they're going against the Creator's instructions of what the purpose of the world is and how we can get to a point of serving Him all the time without having all of this confusion in us. Now, one of the other things that you see in people that do not fear Hashem is that they're very vocal about their lack of fear of Hashem. They're very hateful towards anyone who teaches or speaks about fear of Hashem, and more than anything else, they're very proud of their sins. Their sins are public sins. They're not ashamed of anything. They've lost all sense of shame. And as it says in the Gemara in Masechet Avodah Zarah, someone that desecrates Hashem, like or violates Shabbats, or does any other sins befaresya in public, the punishment is many multitudes higher for such a person. That person that drives on Shabbat, meaning it's obviously, everyone knows he's driving on Shabbat, and this guy is desecrating Hashem's name and so on, that's the person that goes to Gehenom permanently and never comes out, unless he does TeShuva before he dies. A public sin is a clear announcement that you're not afraid of God. So these people that are not afraid of God are always very public about their sins. They're very public about their wrong opinions. And Rashi says, this is a sign of Amalek. Where do we learn it from? Asher karcha baderech, that happened upon you. What do you mean that happened upon you? If you look at the pasuk, Rashi on Namakom, he says, these are people that think that everything is happenstance. These types of people, have a mentality that's the opposite of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where they believe that fulfilling their desires is the primary purpose of the world, not fulfilling Hashem's obligations, so much so that they feel like if they have a physical desire that's really against nature, and needless to say against the Torah, such as homosexuality, they're not only going to sin, but they're going to do it publicly. And that's why Rashi says, we learn, Lashon Keri vetumah, this impurity that's meant by the word Keri, this particular word, and we learn from Midrash Tanchuma that this is referring to Mishkav Zachor. This is referring to homosexuality. What does homosexuality have to do with Amalek? The homosexuals are Amalek. Those people that are going to gay pride parades and are proud of their sins, 100% Amalek. Now, can they save themselves? Of course, they can get themselves out of that filth and do tshuva. Like we've had several students realize after learning many of our shurim that not only is homosexuality forbidden in the Torah, it's literally insanity. It's literally insanity. They did tshuva, and Baruch Hashem, they have fantastic lives now. Surely, it's difficult from time to time and so on, but needless to say, I have several students that have overcome this desire, because even they tell me, listen, everybody sells you this mumbo jumbo that you're born that way, it's all nonsense. And even as Zohar Kadosh says, yes, some people have a feminine trait. It doesn't mean that they're homosexual. It just means that they have feminine traits. So it's most likely that they would be attracted to a masculine female. And a masculine female that has masculine, female that has masculine traits simply doesn't mean that she's homosexual and she needs to be with a girl. It means she should be with someone, most likely, more attracted to a feminine female, a feminine male. Why? Because that's the opposite attract. Simple. But that's the thing. People that have demented mentalities and a lot of desires that go out of control, they not only go and become homosexuals, but they become members of Amalek. They become members of Amalek, and that's what Rashi says on a pasuk. We know that we cannot survive a single pasuk in the Torah without Rashi commentary. And this is not just Rashi, but many, many other places. The lack of Yirat Shamayim leads to every sin in the Torah. And one of the things that Amalek had is that they had no Yirat Shamayim. They would desecrate Hashem's name openly, including homosexuality. They were filthy, filthy human beings that were openly homosexual and doing all types of disgusting things, i.e. the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu says these homosexuals is a character trait of Amalek. So sometimes you're going to have friends, family members, or different people that you know that are homosexual, or they're violating Shabbat, or they eat chametz on Pesach, or they eat on Purim, on Yom Kippur when it's a fast day, and so on and so forth. So does that mean that everybody's Amalek? Not necessarily. It all depends on how they receive the truth and whether they repel it, or they know it's true, it's just hard for them to do tshuva for it. If they're anti-truth, if they're one of these lefty, liberal, open homosexuals that are proud of their rights, one of those types of people, for sure this is Amalek. Hashem is going to destroy them at some point or another. But Baruch Hashem, the Torah is so holy and so extraordinary that even people that came from the source of Amalek can do tshuva, as we learned in the Gemara, that the descendants of Haman, who himself was Amalek, his descendants became big rabbis in Bnei Brak. They converted to Judaism and became big rabbis, Baalei Ruach HaKodesh in Bnei Brak. So here we see that the Torah is extremely powerful, but the point is, does that mean that we should just accept everyone, teach everyone, deal with everyone? And that's what the issue is that the Rav Wasserman is discussing. In the last several months, the Rav Wasserman has told us that before the Holocaust, he saw things that are no different than today. 80 years later, we've learned absolutely nothing, and we're repeating the same mistakes that led to the Holocaust. We repeated the same mistakes that led to a crisis of all kinds, and we're repeating the same things. And Rav Wasserman says that the fish stinks from the top, meaning that the biggest problem, as always, throughout all of the generations, throughout all of history, the biggest problem for Am Yisrael has always been its leaders. It's always been its leaders. From the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, when Korach and his followers, they were leaders, they were the biggest rabbis in the world at the time, they all went against Moshe Rabbeinu, and Hashem put all of them in Gehenom. And the reality is that continued. In the Beit HaMikdash, the first one, the second one, and throughout all of history, we've had leadership problems. We had wicked kings. We had kings that were idol worshippers. But the point being is that this is not a problem of the past. This is a problem of every day. So Rav Wasserman says that one of the things that he saw during his day is that the shepherds, what he calls the shepherds, the leaders, political leaders, rabbinical leaders, and otherwise, were leading people astray with their false beliefs, with their wicked ideology. And the modern Orthodox of the day, or the Dati Leumi, the nationalized type of Jews that felt themselves religious because they remained loyal to a few mitzvot that they liked, but figured that everybody could be a Jew even if they don't believe in God, even if they don't keep Shabbat. In essence, they redefined Judaism, as we've learned in the last few weeks from the Kuntres. And he said last couple of weeks, he told us, listen, how do you know that you have been infected by this ideology of the wicked reformers, enlighteners, Zionists, and the likes? How do you know? Each lefi ma'alalo. A person is judged based on what he praises. If you praise sports stars, Hollywood stars, multi-billionaires, that's who you admire, that's who you are. Meaning, in the eyes of Hashem, you'll be judged as someone who simply disdains Torah. You'll be judged as someone who completely missed the purpose of life. You'll be judged as someone who simply does not even know why you're alive. Why? Because you're praising things that you could only enjoy temporarily in this world. And many times they give you more trouble than actual joy. If you're praising the billionaire, the millionaire, the beautiful, the popular, the honorary, all of those things, you are praising the wrong thing. Why? Who should you praise? You should praise the people that are setting themselves up for an eternity of good, the tzaddikim. And that's what Rav Wasserman has said, is that many times these modern Orthodox types of mentality in his day were bred to believe by their leaders that they should praise the Herzls of the world, the Ben Gurions of the world, those types of people, even though those people were wicked, anti-Semitic Jews. They were self-hating Jews. They wanted to convert Jews to Christianity. They wanted to destroy Judaism. Many of them were either Christians themselves converted to Christianity, or some of them were atheists. Needless to say, none of them were tzaddikim. None of them. And for anyone that mentions, different rabbis that were tzaddikim, that were on the side of the Zionists, you should know that even Rav Ovadia, for example, when he was asked about Rav Kook, Rav Ovadia says that Rav Kook was Kodesh Kodeshim, and the only reason why he was part of the Zionists for a period of time was because he, like many other tzaddikim, did not know what was really behind the trap, what was behind the veil that they were putting over people's eyes. He didn't know how wicked the Zionists were. Many people thought that Herzl was a religious Jew. Many people thought that these Zionists meant well for Am Yisrael and fell for the trap, unfortunately. There's still people at the end of the day as far as being prone to failure. So the point being is, even though many of them were chachamim, were tzaddikim, some actually fell for the trap, but some did not, like Rav Wasserman and many, like Chafetz Chaim, and many other tzaddikim. And the reason why is because they were stricter to the letter of the law than everybody else, specifically pertaining to people that are not shomrei Shabbat v'mitzvot, that are not observing Torah and mitzvot. Specifically when it comes to people that are not learning Torah. Specifically talking about people that are not observant, where to the point where they make the Torah their number one priority. Where they make the biggest rabbis, the sages, the tzaddikim, or even your average avrech learning in a kollel, the person that they praise. If you don't praise your average 25, 35, 45-year-old avrech in a kollel, learning all day, no one even knows he's alive, aside from his immediate family and a few friends. No one in the world. He's not a famous author. He's not a big tzaddik, as far as Talmid Chacham the whole world knows about. But he learns Torah all day. If you don't praise that person, Rav Wasserman will tell you you're missing the point. Why? That tzaddik that's learning Torah all day, that's the superhero of the world. It's not your NBA stars and NFL stars and Hollywood and hedge fund managers. It's none of those people. Those people have no eternity. Those people have no future. Those people are what are the kutzim of the generation. They're like the thorns of the generation. They're not the good of the generation. If you praise those people, you're praising the kutzim. You're praising the wicked, the thorns of the world. You should be praising the tzaddikim. Even if it's not the tzaddik that you know, like Chafetz Chaim and Rav Wasserman and all the other tzaddikim that are famous. Even if it's just your average guy. That's what you should be praising. So here he says, why did Am Yisrael go from praising anyone that learns Torah to praising Zionist anti-Torah people, to praising politicians, to knowing more about the political system of the United States or Israel than knowing what Gemara Masechet Bava Kama says, than knowing what Masechet Brachot says, than knowing what a Masechet is Bechlal. How come more people in Am Yisrael know more about the political system, the salary cap of every sport, and all of that stuff, and they don't know anything about Gemara? How come? It starts with the leaders. Starts with the leaders. It says because we started praising those wicked leaders, honoring the evildoers is a fire which completely destroys, as he brings from Sharei Tshuva about 750 years before him. So now he continues, and he says, in spite of the Torah's warning, it's prohibited to join with Reshaim, with evildoers, even in obeying a mitzvah. They say, not so, for through our cooperation with the sinners, we will cause them to repent. So Wasserman says, look at this. We have clear instructions from the Torah, from our oral Torah, that tells us you're not allowed, you're prohibited to join in any capacity, including a mitzvah, with wicked people. These modern mentality, liberal mentality people are saying, no, you're wrong, you got it all wrong. We have the God of love, we love everyone, even if they're not Jewish, even if they're not religious, even if they're not this, even if they're not that, even if they're wicked, even if they're anti-Jews. Why? Because through our cooperation with them, with these sinners, will cause them to do tshuva, will cause them to repent. They think themselves wiser and better than the Torah itself. And the Torah warns, don't be over-righteous. Al tiyeh tzaddik arbe, as it says in Kohelet, the Ecclesiastes, chapter 7, verse 15. Don't be overly righteous, meaning don't be more righteous than the Torah demands. Man must not attempt to outdo the Torah in righteousness. So here, apologize. For here, Rabotai Yekarim, we have an interesting mitzvah some of us may have never heard of before. What is it? We're prohibited to join the evildoers in anything. Anything, Rabotai, includes even a mitzvah. So now, where we get some of this? This is quoted all over the Rishonim. This is quoted everywhere. Well, we'll bring you a couple of sources. Since Rav Wasserman brought Rabbi Yonah, this is one of the sources that we'll go through. Rabbi Yonah in Sha'arei TeShuva, written about 800 years ago, he has a teachings unlike any other, that a person after reading it once knows that it's not enough, after reading it 99 times knows it's not enough, maybe after 101 times he'll know that he just got started. Why? Because this book has literally the nervous system, what the nervous system, the mental nervous system of a Jew is supposed to look like. In the third gate, section 51, Rabbi Yonah paskets, ואסור להתחבר אל הרשע בעסקי העולם, שנאמר בדברי ימים, ב' פסוק כ', פרק כ', פסוק ל"ז, כי התחרבך עם אחזיהו, פרץ אדוני את מעשיך. Translation, it's also forbidden to be associated with an evil person regarding worldly affairs. Meaning, even business, your partner, idol worshiper, your partner, Christian missionary, your partner, Mechalel Shabbat, find a new partner. Find a new partner. Get out of that partnership. Why? It'll lead to a lot of problems. It'll lead to a lot of problems. I had somebody come to me recently and ask me some questions. They have a business, interesting business, a startup, created an interesting product, and they asked me a few questions about the business. And of course, startups usually need funding, so they have different people, investors, and so on. Said, listen, I got this one guy, religious guy, said that he could help us. He came. He has a few people that he knows. And, we asked him to help us with funding, to get some investors a few times. And he was able to deliver with the investors. But the problem is that as soon as we let him in, the guy started doing all types of shady things with the business, with the money, started looking into the back office, broke into our technology, hacked our system, and all types of things that, we don't even understand what he's doing. What is irrelevant to him at all? And then he brought on another guy who also has similar things. What should we do with these people? I mean, we need funding. We need people that can help us raise money for our company, for our business to survive, and so on. I told him the Torah says, Midvar sheker tirchak. Torah says, Parashat Mishpatim, from a thing of lies, run away from, stay away from. It doesn't say don't lie. It says stay away from it. Meaning, not only don't lie, but even if you're not the liar, somebody else is the liar, run away from such people. Why? This will bring you only problems. Once you know someone is a compulsive liar, that's it. Relationship has to terminate. Why? It's very, very difficult. Very difficult for a person to overcome such a trait. Not impossible, but very difficult. Needless to say, it's almost impossible for them to do it while there's cash in front of them, while there's opportunity in front of them, because they don't even see straight anymore. You literally have a juicy piece of meat in front of them and you're expecting him not to eat it. The guy's a lion. Yeah, but I told him it's my meat. You think he cares? You really think he cares? Because yeah, but I gave him his own meat. So what? So he ate his meat. Now he wants yours. That's what a liar is. Liar doesn't see straight. You don't run away from this person, you're going to get hurt. And right now, the damage is relatively contained because you guys are still new. You guys are still relatively small. I promise you that you getting out of this relationship may hurt a little bit in the beginning, but nonetheless, it'll give you a chance to survive. If you don't, these are the types of people that will eventually take your entire company somehow. They always find a way to rob the entire business from people, the entire money and everything else. So I don't know if they listen. They said they will listen. But again, the advice is free. As far as the results are theirs. It's all in the hands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But sometimes people ask questions without really wanting to listen to them. I don't really know why they ask, but nonetheless, people ask such questions. And Rav Wasserman brings a issue. He says, if the person is wicked, not just if he's a liar, if he's wicked in any aspect, Mechel Shabbat, idol worshiper, missionary, atheist, you cannot be involved with him. Meaning, his definition is much more broad. And where is the source? Rabbeinu Yonah. Rabbeinu Yonah says it's forbidden to associate with an evil person regarding worldly affairs. Where does Rabbeinu Yonah bring this from? Chronicles 2, chapter 20, verse 37, where we see that Yoshaphat, who was righteous, partnered with Achaziah, who was evil. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to him, because you have drawn near with Achaziah, Hashem foiled your actions. So, because of his partnership with this wicked person, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the tzaddik fail. Even when it concerns, Rabbeinu Yonah continues, even when it concerns matters involving mitzvot, meaning even if it's involving a good thing, let's go build a sukkah together. No. Let's go build a house together. No. Let's build a bet knesset together. No. Okay, you know what? HaBa, what do you need? You need $100,000, $500,000, $1 million, $5 million for your yeshiva, for your shul. HaBa, how much did you get? You got half the money? I'll give you the other half of the money, Mr. Wicked says to you. You know what you're supposed to say? No. No. Now you're going to say, wait a minute, wow, you're going to stop the wicked people from doing mitzvot? I'm not saying stop them. But if you know that these people are wicked, evil people, money is not kosher, they're desecrating the Torah, they're mechalel Shabbat, you should not take their money. And use it for big things like that. Why? It's going to be problematic. Now, of course, some Chachamim will have leniencies and will tell you you're allowed to take it, but you shouldn't. You're allowed to take it, and maybe even you should. But the point here is, we see Rabbeinu Yonah says, don't be involved with them at all. Rabbeinu Yonah is black and white. Don't be involved with them at all. Why? Even if it's a mitzvah. It's forbidden to associate yourself with an evil person. Because we also learned from Shlomo HaMelech, chapter 3, verse number 31. Al tihi chaver l'rasha afilu ledvar mitzvah. V'rabu darkei mavet hanimtzaim bechevrat harashaim. Where he says, Al tekaneh be'ish chamas v'al tivchar bekol drachav. So, Rabbeinu Yonah quotes the last part that I mentioned, Mishleh. He says, don't envy a man of violence and do not choose any of his ways. Sometimes people envy boxers or people that are powerful. Oh, this guy just took over this company even though he really stole it from somebody else. Like, yeah, but he won. Or they used to admire Donald Trump when he would embarrass people in public by telling them they're fired in front of millions of people. Rabbeinu Yonah says, look, Shlomo Melech says, don't envy such a person. Don't envy such a person. Don't choose to be like him. Many people have become arrogant as a result of what has been advocated as the way to go, the way to lead, the way to win in the world by showing the media like the show that Donald Trump used to have called The Apprentice and other shows like it, where you have these powerful businessmen simply destroying people in public, whether they're a chef or a CEO, all types of things. They literally embarrass people. And, of course, they don't show you everything that happened. They don't show you the whole conversation. They just show you mainly, without skipping a beat, the most embarrassing moments. So they're literally spilling blood of these people on national television, and the audience, instead of crying foul and saying, this is not right, I'm never going to watch this again, I'm going to write a complaint to the network, what do? They say, you know what? That guy Donald Trump, I want to be like him. That guy, this guy, I want to be like him. They actually start cheering for the bad guy. That's why even in Hollywood, from what I heard, they started making movies of bad guys. Like, literally, the bad guy wins. Which is the opposite of normalcy. But that's what's happened today. Society has changed where this midat Amalek, this traits of Amalek, are seeping through the cracks in every home. Hashem Yishmor. Why? People are envying the wicked people. And Rabbi Yonah continues, he says in Avot Rabbi Natan, Avot Rabbi Natan was Bareitot, that written by the Tanaim 2,000 years ago. Some say it was all written by Rabbi Natan and Rabbi Kadosh, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. And some say that it was a compilation of others, but the point being is this is an ancient writing that some Chachamim say this is part of the Gemara. Others call the Bareitot, but needless to say, everyone quotes it left and right all over the place, and we'll go into it in a moment. Rabbi Yonah quotes it. 800 years ago he quotes it, and he says, our sages in Avot Rabbi Natan, in chapter 9, says, do not become a companion to the wicked, even for the sake of a mitzvah. Meaning that in the name of the Tanaim, the sages that were able to resurrect the dead, he says they taught us, do not become friendly, do not become a companion to wicked people, even for the sake of mitzvot. What does it mean, even for the sake of mitzvot? What? Just to, they can't be a partner with you in donating? They can't be a partner with you in building something? What else does it entail? So, in order to find out, we have to know that Avot Rabbi Natan is one of those that gives clear, black and white language without skipping a beat. If the sages were here today, they'd be thrown out of every shul out there. Why? They weren't politically correct. Here, Rabbi Yonah says, many pathways towards death can be found when associating with the wicked. We have already underscored this transgression and the severity of its punishment, meaning the people that disregard this instructions of not associating with the wicked are going to be punished severely. So let's see what Avot Rabbi Natan says. In chapter 9, Bereita number 4. One of the Tanaim named Nitai. Nitai says, do not associate with the Rasha, with the wicked person. This teaches that a person should not associate with a person who is bad, meaning who sins against his fellow man. And not even with a person who's wicked, which means that he sins against God. On one hand, he sins against his fellow, as well as against God, actually, the one that's bad. But then there's a guy that's wicked, Rasha, where he's actually a decent person to other people, but to Hashem, he's against him. Violates Shabbat, wastes seed, steals, and so on and so forth. So here we see that Avot Rabbi Natan further elaborates it. Says not just don't associate with a wicked person, but don't associate with a bad or evil person. Whether he's bad just to people and not to God, or he's bad to only to God, bottom line is don't associate with him. Why? Because we learn from the Torah that anyone that associated with the evil people lost a lot. And he brings several different examples. In the book of Kings 1, chapter 22, verse 4, and also Chronicles 2, chapter 18, verse 3, brings several different stories. He says we find these in the case of Yehoshaphat, who was a righteous king of Judah, who associated with Achav, the wicked king of Israel, and went up with him to wage war in Ramot Gilad. As a result, Yatsa alav ketzef me'et Hashem. Fury went upon him from God. Meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu hurt him as a result of it. Afterwards, this righteous king of Yehuda, Yehoshaphat, associated with another wicked king, Achav's son. His name was Achaziah, Shem Reshaim Yirkav, to make a joint fleet of ships to go to Tarshish. And they built ships together in Etzion Gever, and God wrecked their undertakings. As it says in the prophet in Chronicles 20 verse 37, the prophet says to Yoshaphat, because you have allied yourself with Achaziah, Hashem has wrecked your undertakings. The ships broke down and did not succeed in going to Tarshish. Third example he brings, similarly we find in the case of David HaMelech's son, Amnon. David HaMelech's son, Amnon, associated himself with his cousin, who was a Rasha by the name of Yonadav. Now this Yonadav gave him terrible advice in the end. But in the beginning he was known as a very smart person, it says. Ulamnon Rashmo, Ulamnon Rea Ushmo Yonadav, that Amnon had a friend. His name was Yonadav, who was actually his cousin. Yonadav ben Shima, Achi David, Yonadav ish chacham meod. It says that Amnon had a friend named Yonadav, the son of David's brother, Shimea, and Yonadav was a very wise man. In the book of Samuel 2, chapter 13, verse 3. So, smart person, who doesn't want a smart person? Comes about Rabbi Natan, says, Chacham Lara he was. What scripture is referring to is that he was wise for the purpose of evil. He was wise for the purpose of evil, where this guy gave him advice that led to Amnon dying. How did this happen? Amnon gave him advice of how to go and capture Tamar into his chambers so he could rape her. That's his wisdom. Wisdom, what a good friend, which eventually led to his death. As a result of this sin, Avshalom, his brother, her brother, they were brothers actually. It was an incestual relationship. And point being is that after he raped her, he ended up getting killed. But this advice of how to do it and how to fool her by pretending to be sick and getting her into the room, that all came from his so-called friend, which really now we know is not a friend but rather a frenemy, as an enemy that pretends to be a friend, who was known as Yonadav, the wise Yonadav, but wise for evil. So now we see that Nitai is telling us you have to be careful with dealing with these wicked people. Even if you're meaning to do something good, fight a war, get more land, beat bad people, no good. Okay, great. So what about, let's say, helping them do tshuva? Sometimes you have to do things that you don't want to do in this business. It's sad to call it a business, but it is a business. What's the business? You have to deal with people constantly. So what do you have to do sometimes? You have to cut off people. You have to cut off people. As a teacher, you have to sometimes cut off people. Why? The Gemara in Masechet Moed Katan and several other places says that you're not allowed to learn from someone who's lo agun, who's not a fair teacher, who has bad character traits, who's a person that's not a good person. He may know a lot of good things, but he himself is not a good person. Not allowed to learn from such a thing. But the very same Gemara says you're also not allowed to teach such a person. Meaning, if the teacher is righteous, tzaddik, and everything else, but if the student is not just your average sinner and he's sinning out of ignorance, he's sinning out of foolishness, but rather he simply decides that his way is right and the Torah is wrong. He decides that this is what it means no matter what the Chachamim say. He decides that what you're saying is a chumrah and what he thinks is the reality. Now, if this is just one or two times and then you explain it to them or to her and they realize and they make changes, no problem. But if they continuously do that, and you see they're continuously manipulating the Torah like you do putty, like you do with clay, to their own likings, that's known as a talmid shelo agun. He's an unfair talmid. This is a person that you cannot deal with. You can't teach such a person. Can't teach such a person. Now, what does Avot Rabbi Natan say on such thing? דבר אחר, אל תתחבר לרשע ואפילו לתורה. Alternatively, do not associate with a wicked person means even for the purpose of studying Torah together. Meaning, Rabotai Karim, if the person doesn't know and is willing to hear, it's a mitzvah. And the biggest mitzvah you possibly can do for the sake of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to bring him or her back closer to Hashem. Help them keep Shabbat. Help them overcome their different desires that they have. Help them. That's what we do 24 hours a day practically. But if you see that this person is a rasha, in such a sense that he's lo agun, he's wicked because he's distorting the Torah to his likings, he's distorting the Torah from the student's perspective, meaning just like Manis Friedman, Imach Shimo, or Meza, Imach Shimo, or Dror, or all of the other, or Ephraim Goldberg, or Mirvis, all of these wicked teachers, sometimes there are students like that. That student, you have to cut him off. No more talking, no more communication. Stop it. Just nothing, stop. Why? You're not helping him. And in fact, he can hurt you. He can hurt you. That's what Avot Rabbi Natan is saying here. Sometimes you have to realize and call it as it is. It's not ignorance, but rather wickedness. He's not making the sins because he's ignorant. She's not making sins because she's ignorant. She's making the sins because she's wicked. I had a woman that I asked, listen, Baruch Hashem, you did TeShuva, you're a chazakah ubucha, your life looks amazing, married a good guy, have Baruch Hashem good kids, and awesome, Baruch Hashem. But you being in the psychological world, you're very she's someone that has a lot of experience with people and so on. Can you tell me something? I want to understand this. I mean, I learned what the books say, but I want to understand from a woman's perspective. Why do women walk around immodest? What do they get out of it? I mean, she's married. She's not married. She's young. She's old. Like, it doesn't seem like it has, like, a limitation. Why? She looks at me. She says, you really don't know? I said, well, I know she wants to get attention. She goes, you think that's it? Just attention? She already got attention. At home, she got attention from her husband, her boyfriend, or this and that. So she gets attention. I said, exactly, that's my point. That's my question. Why does she keep doing it if she already has attention? The guy bought her a car, he bought her a house, he bought her this, he bought her that. But she's still trying to get the attention of Steve from the supermarket and attention from this guy and that guy. She says, don't you understand? Subconsciously, this girl has been taught from society that she has a superpower. I said, what? She said, exactly that. That girl has been taught, consciously or subconsciously, that she has a superpower. By walking around immodestly, she has a superpower to take control of people's minds. Why? That guy was thinking about stocks, bonds, mutual funds, clients, death benefit, this, IRS. All of a sudden, he stopped thinking about all of that stuff and it was replaced with a picture of her. That guy was thinking about the death of a loved one, all crisis, this, that. All of a sudden, it was replaced with her. That guy was thinking about he can't wait to get married. He loves her. Great. All of a sudden, the picture of his loved one was replaced with a picture of her. That guy was teaching a bunch of little kids, Gemara, this, oh, Kodesh Kodashim, great, Shema Yisrael, all that stuff. Suddenly, his mind went blank and it was replaced with a picture of her. Why? She walked by them immodestly and her superpower took control without her doing anything other than walking. And sometimes not even that. She has a superpower. I said, that is the most extraordinary thought I've ever heard from about the subject. And she says, I'm surprised you didn't know. I said, I don't know if anybody knows, including the people that do this, including the women that walk around immodest. She goes, that's what it is. It feels great to have the superpower, she tells me. And it's tough to overcome the desire to practice the superpower. Why? Because right now, the TeShuva, now you're modest. Now, okay, people look at you, but they look at you differently. They look at you with respect. They look at you with honor. Oh, she must be married. She's religious. That's it. You don't have that same superpower. You walked around and you stopped traffic. You don't have that superpower where people left all of their deepest thoughts and now they're replaced with you. You don't have that superpower that guy is going to think about you at 4 o'clock in the morning when he's with his wife. You don't have that superpower anymore. He says that's a big desire. It's hard for women to overcome it. And I said, and that's the reason why Kadosh Baruch Hu gives such a big reward for a woman that does tshuva and becomes modest. Now I understand the magnitude of the crime, literally turning yourself into an idol as a result of immodesty, but also the magnitude of the reward that will go to a righteous woman that does tshuva and completely destroys all of her immodest clothes, like Baruch Hashem, many of our students have done, as a fulfillment of the mitzvah of destroying Amalek. Some students of mine did it specifically on Purim in order to fulfill the mitzvah of destroying Amalek. They didn't sell the clothes. They didn't even just throw them in the garbage. They made sure to destroy them so no one ever even thinks of wearing them. And we're talking about women that had clothes that were worth literally tens of thousands of dollars. Destroyed all of it. Why? She realized, this is a superpower, I don't want it anymore. It's a superpower, it's going to get me to Gehenom. That's why these women get such a big reward. Why? Because the second you become truly modest, not just with your clothes, but also with your mind, you're no longer looking to attract everyone with this so-called superpower. You're no longer looking to be the center of attention. You just want to be daddy's little girl. Who's daddy? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I just want to do what you want. Yishtabach Shemo La'ad. You want me to be modest? I'm going to be modest. You want me to do the best that I can to raise my kids? I'll do the best that I can to raise my kids. Be good to my husband? I'll be good to my husband. Send him to go learn? I'll send him to go learn. What else do you want me to do, HaKadosh Baruch Hu? That's why a Bat Israel gets such a big reward. That's why. Because this is literally an extraordinary ability that literally any woman can have. Just like that. And any woman can do tshuva for. Just like that. The question is, are you going to be that woman? You see, Rabotai Yekarim, Avot Rabbi Netanya is telling us, sometimes there are people that are ignorant and therefore they sin. Don't think that that's going to be a good excuse when you go up to Shamayim. Oh, I didn't know. Okay, great. We'll give him Gan Eden anyway. There's no such thing as Gan Eden or heaven for ignorance. No such thing. But the point being is, he or she is ignorant and therefore they sin. That means that as soon as you give them information to tell them this is prohibited, this is not allowed, and they change, sometimes right away, sometimes step by step, but needless to say, they change. Good person. Keep teaching them. Keep helping them. But if you see that this woman has been coming to your shiur week after week for months and for years, and she still comes into the shiur an extra few minutes late because she knows that when she comes in late, all the guys look. She knows that when she comes late, with our new outfit. Everyone's going to appreciate the new outfit. You have to do everything possible to get this person out of your life. What do I do when such a thing happens? I make sure they know not to ever do it again. We had that one time happen. It wasn't a recurring thing. But somebody decided, we had a shiur in Florida, probably had something like, maybe 100 people in the shiur, and we had a lot of young kids. It was one of our Torah challenge events. Had about 100 kids in there. And there was a group of girls, maybe 15, 20 girls. All of a sudden, two guys that I know walk into the shiur a good half hour late. Now, usually I don't say anything about how, people being late. Just you came to the shiur. It's better than you going to the nightclub. In this particular case, I made sure that they knew. How did I make sure they knew? Because they walked in with two girls they probably picked up at, at the zoo or the nightclub. Pretty much the same thing. The second they walked in, everyone, including the girls, couldn't stop staring at these two girls. At that second that I saw literally the whole shift, like as if they don't realize that I can see everybody's face, I saw everybody's face shift and just stay this way at these two girls that practically came to the place with literally, Amevin Yavin. Oh, happy. At that second, the lecture changed. What did it change to? It changed from what it was about. I think it was about emunah, bitachon, something. All of a sudden, genom, kafakela, the punishment for immodesty, the punishment for promiscuity. Like literally, anyone that was in that room all of a sudden just realized, did something just happen here? And they made sure that they knew. And a short little while later, they obviously, short seconds later, they realized that everything I'm talking about is about them. And if they ever want to come to the shiur again, they're going to have to dress appropriately. The reality is, Rabotai Karim, is that sometimes people are not ignorant. Sometimes they're very well aware of their crime. They're very well aware of the truth, but they're too addicted to the sin. They're too addicted to the desire and they can't let it go, or at least they think they can't let it go. And that's a person you have to throw them out as fast as you can. Why? There are too many good people waiting online looking to do tshuva. Now, does that mean that you can't help such a person? Surely you can. There are even stories, famous stories of wicked people that did tshuva. There's one famous wicked person by the name of Abu Lafia. A person by the name of Abu Lafia that years ago was a famous mumar. He used to be a religious Jew. Then he went off the derech, in the highest capacity, became a missionary against Jewish people, but not to Christianity. Missionary just against Judaism. Hated Judaism. There's some other Reshaim in the world that are similar to him, but he was in a higher capacity. He would literally go to the government of the Goyim and go against these Jewish people to make sure that they arrest people and kill Jews. Literally led to the murder of countless Jews. And he did it for years. After doing it for something like 20 years, 10, 20 years, long time, killed a lot of Jews. He was already around 50 years old at this time. And Chachamim say that suddenly one day he got some spark of Kedusha that entered him and wouldn't leave. All of a sudden he had this unbelievable, uncontrollable desire just to do good. And he wanted to do tshuva. He came to the rabbis and he said, listen, I'm really sorry, I want to do tshuva. The rabbis knew his history, knew this guy led to not just violating Shabbat and doing all types of immoral things, led to the murder of countless Jews. They said, go fly kite, get out of here. Tameh, you're impure. Impure, we can't trust such a person. And they're right, that's what the halakha is. The guy's a missionary, guy causes such damage, can't help such a person. Kicked him out. He knew that there's nothing that he could do in this place. He left the city, went to a different country. Went over there and went to the rabbi over there. He says, listen, I want to do tshuva. I want to do this. I want to be part of the community. So the rabbi starts asking about him. He says, sure, I'll help you. Oh yeah, of course. Baruch HaBa, this. Tell me a little bit about yourself. And the guy was honest. He says, listen, I made this crime and that crime and this crime and that crime. And this was a big Talmid Chacham. All of a sudden he becomes weak. He says, I can't help such a person. Get out of here. Out. I can't help you. And he kicked him out also. So this Abu Lafia went home and started crying hysterical to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He really wanted to do tshuva, which was unreal. So some type of schut avot, merit of his forefathers, or something happened here. Obviously, it was a very unusual story. It's written in the Sefer. I learned from Rabbi Ephraim. And he wants to do serious tshuva. And he starts crying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu every single day, for a year straight, Hashem, I'm not looking for you to put me in Gan Eden, give me a reward, get me out of Gehenom that I built for myself. I'm not looking for that. All I want is just for you to accept my apology, to accept my tshuva. That's it. Even if you still put me in Gehenom, even if I'm never going to see Gan Eden, even if I'm going to continue having a horrible life, as long as I know that eventually you're going to accept my tshuva, that's enough for me. Even if I'm going to go to Gehenom, I'm not going to Gan Eden, no reward for this. It's still, I'll be happy. Mamash got to a very high level, very unusual. And he did this every day with tears, Mamash tears of blood every single day. After a year passed of doing this, the Chacham that rejected him in the city that he was in, I forget the name, Hashem forgive me, he had a Brit Milah for his grandson. And him and his son both had a dream that night before the Brit Milah, where someone told them, one of the sages came to them and said to them, listen, tomorrow neither you or anyone else that you know are going to be the sandak holding the baby for the Brit Milah. So who is it going to be? The only person you're allowed to put as a sandak to the Brit Milah is a person that as soon as you see that person, you'll see a fire, a holy fire coming out of their forehead. And that's how they both the father and the son, both with tzaddikim, had this dream. Next day is a Brit Milah, and they tell each other, oh yeah, I had this dream. Oh yeah, I had the same dream. Oh, okay, so who's the guy? So I don't know, I thought it was you. No, they don't know. They start looking in the room. Nothing. Now, as it would happen, they invited the entire community. to come to the Brit Milah. So this Abu Lafia got an invitation, because they didn't know who he was. They didn't know his name or anything like that. He got an invitation to, that there was an event there. Like, not a personal invitation to come to Brit Milah, but there is a Brit Milah. The community should come. Okay, so he said, okay, so I'll go. He prayed to Hashem and said, okay, maybe I'll go. Maybe there's something for me to see, at least something holy. As soon as he walks into the synagogue, the Rav and his son both see him with fire, spiritual fire, that they're the only ones that could see coming out of his forehead. I said, you, come, quickly, gotta do Brit Milah. Abu Lafia says, what Brit Milah? Me? What do you want me? Come, you're in the sandak, come sit down. They put him down, he holds the baby, Brit Milah, Chazak u'Baruch. So, he has no idea what just happened. And he said, Chazak u'Baruch, thank you for coming, Chazak u'Baruch. He says to them, why did you pick me? And they tell him, we both had a dream that we have to pick a person that has such a light. He says, I don't know about any light of what you're talking about, but you guys know who I am? He says, no, we don't know who you are. He says, I came to you a year ago. I moved here from that other city. because they rejected me over there after I killed so many people. And I came to a year ago telling you I want to do TeShuva. And you told me, no, I can't help you. You're a lost case. So they tell him, so what have you been doing over this last year? And he tells them, every single day I do whatever mitzvot I can. And I cry to HaKadosh Baruch Hu non-stop, telling him, just please accept my TeShuva, even if you put me in Gehenom and I never go to heaven. And then the two Rabbanim said to him, wow, Ashrecha, that you've reached such a level that the Gemara in Masechet Brachot says, in a place that Baalei TeShuva stand, even tzaddikim do not get to. You have reached such a level. Ashrecha, you are not only a Baal TeShuva, you are highest level of Baal TeShuva. Obviously, accepting to the Kila, showing how Kadosh Baruch Hu accepts the TeShuva, even though someone could be literally the worst person on planet Earth, to the point where Hashem says, I don't want your TeShuva. This, the Gemara in Masechet Pesachim says, this is the only thing you are not allowed to listen to Hashem on. Meaning that if he says, I don't want you anymore, you become a kofar in this regards. Meaning that you don't listen to Hashem and you do TeShuva anyway, and if you do TeShuva seriously, eventually Hashem is going to accept you. So, here we see, Rabotai, that obviously there's not that many stories like this, or else we would have entire books about it. But the point being is that there are some people that are evil, and they know that they're evil, and they want to stay evil. Such people, not allowed to teach them. Not allowed to befriend them, not allowed to help them. You have to stay away from them. You have to stay away from them as far as possible. Why? Because these people, Rabotai, are very, very dangerous and they're untrustworthy. And of course, you're never going to know whether these people are ever going to change or not change. And a person needs to know that they cannot put themselves at risk. They can't put themselves at risk. There's another story in the Ahavat Chaim, very famous sefer, and also in other Sfarim, where there was a well-known rich person that lived in a community probably similar to the community that lived at the time of Jeremiah. Jeremiah lived at a time where literally your average person during that generation was a murderer, a rapist, a horrible, horrible person. Literally just like awful, awful people. Wicked generation. Wicked generation, so much so that the Gemara in Masechet Bava Batra, page 16b, Bava Kama, page 16b, says that Jeremiah cursed those people that even if they give, they were so wicked, they forced them to waste seed or be raped. They did all types of really, really horrible things that Baruch Hashem, even in this generation, I don't think exists. But point being is, this generation at the time of Jeremiah, which is right before the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, Jeremiah cursed the day he was born, but along that he also cursed them to Hashem, saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Gemara says that even if they give tzedakah, let these wicked people have their tzedakah go to wicked people. Go to, pretenders, people that pretend to be rabbis, but in reality they're Erev Rav. People that have a long white beard, they have a famous synagogue or YouTube channel, thousands or even millions of views, but in reality the guy is a noef, is an adulterer, is a pedophile, is a filthy human being. People like that. He says, let the wicked people, let their tzedakah, let their investments in Torah go to that guy. This is, by the way, the reason why you're going to typically see the wicked people prosper. Prosper. Why? Because there is a curse on other wicked people to go give their money to other wicked people. Because to give to righteous people, you have to have merit. So anyway, there are some people that are extremely wicked. So there's one, wealthy guy, who was a righteous guy, and he lived among a lot of wicked people. And he didn't have the ability to move. Apparently he had his business there, and it was not like today where you could pretty much work out of home and have any business you want in 15 minutes. It's one of those times where you had something, this is where it was, or, if you move, you're simply giving up everything you have. So he wasn't able to move so easily. But he had a daughter that was very righteous, And he wanted his daughter to marry a righteous Talmid Chacham. So he went to a different city, and he comes to the yeshiva over there, and he comes to the rabbi. He says, listen, I need somebody that's your best Talmid, but someone that simply has no interest whatsoever in society. All he wants to do is learn Torah. I want him to marry my daughter. The rabbi said, I have one guy like this. Who is the guy? Oh, this guy. He's like, well, listen. Talks to the guy. He's like, listen, I'll let you marry my daughter. I'll pay for everything. You'll have a house. You'll have a mansion. You'll have a personal chef. Everything you need. One condition. What's the condition? You're not allowed to leave the house. Only learn Torah. The guy says, what I'm doing anyway. Okay, but that's it. It stays that way. She says, no problem. You're going to pay for everything for me to learn Torah and live in luxury the rest of my life. And on top of it, I get to marry a beautiful girl. Psh, righteous? Oh, Hashem, what a blessing. Okay, so they struck the deal, introduced him to his daughter. His daughter liked it, said, okay, yeah, I'll marry this guy, righteous guy. Oh, Hashem, not like today. You introduce people and say, oh, yeah, but I don't like his nose. Okay, but I don't like her ears. And I don't like this, I don't like that. Before you know it, Shidduch number 37, and both of them are 37 years later. Today, people are too picky. So, what ended up happening? They get married. So, the guy starts learning in the house, fancy house. Chef comes every day, new dish, new food. Baruch Hashem. After some time passes, the Talmid says, I've been learning Torah nonstop. Let me go see what's in the town. Let me go see what's in the town. So the father-in-law said, oh, hold on a second. Remember our deal. I said you're going to learn Torah year after year and no changes. You stay in the house. Yeah, but listen, I understand what our deal is. I'm not planning on going to stay outside and go to business. I just want to see what's outside. I learned a lot of Torah. I can impact people. He says, listen, you can't impact these people. These people are murderers, rapists, pedophiles, worst people on planet Earth. I'm telling you, you can't. These are horrible people. These are not people that are open to change. These are not people that are interested in Torah. This is like a generation of Jeremiah type of people. But he says, well, come on, I learned a lot of Torah. I have some strength. Give me a chance. And he doesn't listen to the father-in-law. It's not a jail. And he decides to go out. And as you would have it, the guy goes out. He starts talking to some people. In reality, he wanted to have some friends. So he finds some people to befriend him. And he starts talking to them. And, little by little, the father notices that he's studying less. And he's changing a little bit. And before he gets too far, we have to nip this in the bud. Because I got to do something to shock him. I got to explain this to him. He doesn't understand what's at risk. So, next day, the guy is studying. The father-in-law comes in. He's like, listen, I'm sorry to bother you. I have a question for you. A halachic question. Oh, sure. Kvodo. What's the halachic question? He says, we went to get nice stew for celebration, for learning and everything. Well, the problem is, my maidservant, who's not Jewish, she just went shopping for herself at the non-kosher butcher. And she went to go pick me up all the meat and everything. But as you would have it, because she had some of her meat, she had one of our things, and she, one small piece of her pork that she bought fell, or non-kosher meat, I should say, fell into the whole stew. The whole stew of kosher meat. So we don't know what to do. Throw out the whole thing. He said, well, hold on a second, let me see it. So, shows it to him, sees this pot is enormous. It's enough to feed 100 people. Tons and tons of meat. 500 times the amount of the little piece that went in there, because they can't tell which is the piece. He says, no, Kvodo, listen, don't throw out anything. Why? If the non-kosher meat goes into the kosher meat, you don't know where it is, but there's at least 60 times more. It's accident, not on purpose. If it's on purpose, the whole thing's forbidden. But if it's an accident, 60 times more, the stew is still allowed. Why? It's bitul b'shishim, cancels out in 60. Okay, thank you very much. Now in reality, the father-in-law knew all this. Why? He's preparing for second day. Next, listen, in celebration of your immense Torah knowledge, he tells them, I'm going to buy the entire thing, and we're going to have a big celebration. So they have a big celebration, they buy the whole thing, everybody eats, a huge feast, meat, and so on and so forth. In those days, it wasn't so common for people, for the average person to eat meat, especially not during the week. But here, they had a huge feast, countless people, everybody's having a good time. Baruch Hashem. The next day, the father-in-law, hello? Oh yeah, I'm sorry to bother you again, but I wanted to give you an invitation. What's an invitation? I want to give you an invitation to have another feast like yesterday. He says, what's the feast about yesterday? I know, feast, we celebrated Torah. What are we feasting today? He says, today we're feasting that I got such a good deal on the meat. So the Talmud says to him, what do you mean you got such a good, that's why you wanted to feast? He goes, yeah, listen, yesterday you taught me something extraordinary. You taught me that small piece of meat, if it was a little bit bigger, meaning if there wasn't 60 times that, in kosher meat, that little piece of meat, if it was a little bit bigger, could impact all of them just from that little piece of meat. So I thought to myself, wow, instead of buying every piece of steak for $20, $25 a pound, because it's kosher, let me go get a nice, huge pig, nice fat one too, one of those 400, 500, 600 pound pigs, get the guy to cook it up nice, and then take a nice, small little kosher piece of steak and throw it into the bucket. And now we are all about to have, right now it's waiting for you, a nice feast with a delicious pig. But it's kosher pig though. Why? I threw that piece of meat in there. The Talmud says, oh, what are you doing? No, you misunderstood. It's not that the small piece of taref, of unkosher, is can affect the kosher. No, it's not that. The small piece can't affect such a massive amount of non-kosher. Doesn't work that way. That little piece of meat that was not kosher, where it went into the stew of kosher meat, it's only the leniency to allow it because it's not enough. There's not enough of it to impact the kosher, because there's so much more kosher. But it's impossible for a small piece of kosher to impact so much kosher, so much taref, so much pig, so much non-kosher. It's impossible for it. So the father-in-law says to him, your ears should listen to your mouth. You're saying that a little bit of kosher cannot change a bunch of non-kosher. But yet you are going into a town that's not 60 times bigger than you, but 6,000 times bigger than you. And yet you think you're going to change the entire town, even though your average person here is a criminal, not just against God, but against men too. And you think that that's not going to change you? Instead of you changing them, you're not noticing, but they're making you tarif. Many times, Rabotai Karim, a person does not understand the risk at hand. The risk at hand by befriending people that are wicked in the name of helping them do tshuva. And the Avot Rabbi Natan, the 5th and the 6th Bareto that follow the one that we just talked about, discuss this too, where he says that the Torah tells us, do not despair of retribution. How so? This teaches that the heart of a person who has sinned should be in fear every day, not just if you sin today. If you've sinned once in your life, you should be in fear every single day, even after you've done tshuva. And he should constantly say to himself, Oi to me, woe to me, perhaps the divine retribution for my sins will befall me today, or perhaps it will be tomorrow. Thus it emerges that he is in fear of retribution every day and will dissuade him from sinning any further, as we learn from the prophet Job. Job was a prophet, says in Job chapter 3 verse 24, because I feared affright, teaching us that Job did not sin. No, he's called a person that was wholesome and upright, and he feared God and shunned evil. Why was he such an upright person? And why did Hashem give him such a test? Because he was such an upright person, because he was upright as a result of his fear of Hashem. And that caused him not to sin. He says, I didn't sin because I feared Hashem. So here, the Avot Rabbi Natan teaches us what? What's the conclusion? Don't become complacent in this world, as retribution, even in this world, can come at any time. So a person should never think of themselves as so righteous that the wicked people around you are not going to affect you. You have to understand, if you're going to help people do tshuva, you have to know that you have to do it in the way of the Torah, which is just like the Mishnah in Avot. Mishnah in Avot says that Aaron HaKohen, he loved Shalom and chased Shalom, and he brought Am Yisrael to the Torah. Meaning what? Meaning that despite the fact that Aaron HaKohen loved peace and he chased peace, when he taught Torah, he brought people to the Torah, not the Torah to people. Meaning he never lowered the Torah to fit people's standards, to fit people's low standards. He never lowered the Torah. If you're going to help people do tshuva, if you're going to help people learn Torah, you have to teach the Torah 100% true version of it, no other version, no soft version, no baby version, no child version, just the full truth, as is. Now, you're going to say, wait, but this is too high for them. There is no too high for them. You teach them what it says and let them decide for themselves what they want to take on. Don't lower yourself. You're going to say, wait, but if I lower it a little bit, or if I play basketball with them a little bit, I go to the movie with them a little bit, I hang out with them a little bit, have a couple of beers with them a little bit, I do all this little bit, I become friends with them, then they're going to want to do tshuva. That's exactly what Rav Wasserman is saying that you should not do, because that's what those modern people were doing. That's what organizations in the modern Orthodox world are still doing to this day. All types of organizations, B'nai B'rith, NCSY, all of these different organizations, they cater to the younger people by how? Tell them we're going to go to trips, we're going to go to Israel, we're going to go to ski trips, we're going to be boys and girls, make a lot of sins, but we're going to teach you some Torah. We're going to have a Super Bowl party and a Thanksgiving party and a this party and that party, but we're going to teach you a little bit of Torah. And what happens? Gilui Arayot happens. All types of sex crimes happen. All types of Chilul Hashem happens. All types of garbage happens. No tshuva happens. The rare story of once in a blue, one guy actually does tshuva, real tshuva, is few and far in between the amount of sins that are made. Why? Torah is not taught that way in order to get good results. The way you get good results, Rabotai, is you do what Aaron HaKohen did. You do what Rabbi Yonah says. You do what Rav Wasserman says. You do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, which is Torah is Torah. You teach people the Torah. You let them decide what's too high, what's too this. Don't decide that everything is too high for them. Who are you to decide that the Torah is too high for anyone? When you start befriending the public and you hang out with them and so on, in essence, you're lowering your stature to make people think that you're just like them. Now, you may very well be just like them, and therefore you shouldn't be teaching them in the first place. But if you're not just like them, and you're pretending to be just like them, then aside from being a liar, you're also being disingenuous in regards to the Torah itself. Why? Because you're presenting the Torah as if it's just a free-for-all, you could just do whenever you feel like it. Kadosh Baruch Hu never said such a thing. If you want to teach the Torah, you have to teach the Torah the way it's supposed to be taught, which is 100% truth. Titen emet liYaakov. Give emet to Yaakov. Who's Yaakov? Am Yisrael. Give them the emet. Uncensored emet. Let them decide what they can handle, what they can't handle. All of those people that have sugar-coated the Torah and massaged the Torah to fit and catered it to the public, little by little, they didn't realize something. That the day of retribution is coming, even in this world. How so? They forgot that they themselves used to be sinners. And they figured that they have enough merit that they could just teach all of these wicked people without being harmed. Now, if you're teaching people the right Torah, the Torah is going to protect you. But if you're teaching the wrong Torah, a Torah that's not a real Torah, it's a Torah that you have decided that that's the Torah is not going to protect you. So those old sins come back to haunt you. And those other people's sins start affecting you. And little by little you start seeing these rabbis, these people start getting affected by the wicked people that they teach, and little by little become wicked themselves. I've seen this with my own eyes in certain people. I saw there was one guy, he started off fantastic. Years ago, went to a good yeshiva, had good teachers, has good connections, and so on and so forth. One time, they invited me to their kila. I went there, I gave a shiur. The people liked it, everything was good. Later on, people invited me again. I went there, and I saw there was much less people. Much less people. I said, okay, maybe a little busy, this, that, the other thing. As soon as I finished my shiur, I saw a bunch of people that I saw last time, but they were coming to the place, but not for me. They were coming to see the rabbi. And I thought, it's kind of weird. You were around, you were available. I didn't come. Oh, no, the rabbi told us not to come. Why not? Oh, I don't know. He just said that, your way is not fit for everybody. And I'm thinking to myself, my way is not fit for everybody. The guy that I'm talking to drives the shul on Shabbat, every Shabbat for 10 years. And little by little, the picture developed, the information developed, and what ended up happening is that this rabbi has been teaching this kila for 15 years. And for 15 years, he never told him a single thing about not driving on Shabbat. So much so that when I said it during the first shiur that if you drive on Shabbat, you're considered an idol worshiper, that if you drive on Shabbat, you're going to be death penalty. So much so, they all went to him after that first shiur and said, listen, we come to you every single week. Every single week they have classes there with that rabbi a few times a week. And we learn everything with you. And you told us it's perfectly fine that we drive on Shabbat. We've asked you this before. Later, they rallied around the guy. He told us that everything's okay. Because we live far away. This guy just came. You brought him into this place. This guy just came. And he said, we're all idol worshippers. We're all going to go to Gehenom. So what's what? Who's right? He says, listen, he doesn't really know what he's talking about. I spoke to the biggest rabbi, and he told me that you guys are exception because you live far from the shul, and don't worry, you're okay. You continue driving. And next time he comes, because we already set it up, next time he comes, you don't come to the lecture because he's going to confuse you. I'm talking about me. He taught them all types of garbage for so many years that eventually he became garbage himself. That even when they wanted to do tshuva, there was a chance for them to do tshuva, he himself stopped them from doing it. Why? Because it would make him wrong. And he couldn't deal with it. Now, although he started off well, leaving his home country, leaving this, leaving that, making a sacrifice, all for the sake of Torah, so on and so forth, because he started catering the Torah to the people instead of bringing the people up to the Torah, his Torah did not protect them, and the sins of the others affected him, and he became a bigger rasha than the rest of his kila. And the rest of his kila continues till this day, driving on Shabbat, week after week, with no one even questioning anything. No one even questioning anything. This, Rabotai, is a sad reality. It's a sad reality when people do not listen to the Chachamim. When people distort the Torah to their own likings. And what they don't realize is that the Torah has extraordinary power. if you listen to it 1,000%. But that power that the Torah has will impact you, will be impacted if you surround yourself with Reshaim. When you go out to war, Sefer has an extraordinary story of the Chafetz Chaim. Chafetz Chaim was Kodesh Kodeshim. When he's already in his later years, he had to move because of everything that was happening. And during the First World War, was getting close to Radin, and they had to escape. They had to escape deeper part into the country, and they went into deep Russia. And in Russia, the Chafetz Chaim, on his first Shabbat there, saw for the first time in his life a Mechalel Shabbat. A Jew violating Shabbat. And he starts hysterical crying. Imagine an old man crying is dangerous, life risk. He starts hysterical crying, and his Talmidim are trying to calm him down. They know he's crying. Why are you crying for the Rab? What do you mean? It's a Mechalel Shabbat. Look what's happening here. What is a Jew doing to himself? He's separating himself from Hashem. And he's crying. And then eventually calms down and goes back to Shabbat, goes back to learning Torah, teaching Torah. A week later, again the Chafetz Chaim sees a Mechalel Shabbat again. And this time he starts crying, but not crying like last time. Much, much more. To the point where they can't stop him. He's just crying hysterical. And they said, Kvod Rav, please at least tell us something. Why are you crying so much more this week than last week? The Chafetz Chaim answers them an answer that's worth $1 billion for anyone who could understand it. He said, last week when I saw a Jew violating Shabbat, I cried for that Jew. I cried for that Jew who's desecrating the Shabbat, desecrating HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name, distancing himself away from his Father in heaven, completely untying any connection to the Creator of the world. I cried for that. But this week I started crying when I saw a Jew violate Shabbat, because that's what you're supposed to do when you feel for Am Yisrael. But then I thought to myself, woe unto you, Israel Meir, woe unto you, Israel Meir, that since this is already the second time that you've seen a Mechalel Shabbat, you don't feel as much pain as you did last week. And I said to myself, Israel Meir, that was his name, the Chafetz Chaim, Israel Meir, you're ruined. And I cry to myself as I realize I'm ruined. Why? My sensitivity is already ruined. Why? I saw it. I saw wicked people twice. I've been around wicked people for long enough. I'm ruined. This is the mind of the tzaddikim, Rabotai. This is the mind of the tzaddikim. This is our Torah Kedosha. It has the power to protect you. It has the power to bring you extraordinary joy. But if you allow wicked people to roam around your life on a regular basis, and you do not elevate those people to the Torah, either because they're Amalek and they refuse and they hate the Torah, or because you're simply deciding for them that they can't handle it, then those wicked people will impact you and will turn you into them. It's just a matter of time. The only thing that you can do to protect yourself from wicked people, whether those wicked people are family members, friends, partners, whatever it is, only ways we've learned today. 1, don't associate with them at all. Run away. Like the Rambam says, go to the desert. That's not realistic for most people. Why? You work in New York, you work in Florida, you work in England, you work in Tel Aviv, you work in different places. Wicked people are everywhere. So to disassociate from all of those people while being in the business world, while even being in a yeshiva frum world, still there's wicked people everywhere. To disassociate completely, it's not realistic for most people. Now, of course, you could limit it. You don't have to go to your cousin's house and your aunt's mixed wedding and all those things. Of course, you limit that stuff. But to eliminate it completely, it's virtually impossible. All you can do is contain it to some extent. Second part is that when it comes to wicked people, you can't run away from them completely. Second token, you can't embrace them and be close to them, because then you're going to turn into a wicked person. So what do you have to do? You have to, number one, be selective. If they're wicked out of ignorance, then try to enlighten them with Torah. Give them a CD, give them a USB. You go to be'ezrathashem.org, the store, you order yourself some USBs, you order yourself some CDs, and you give it to people just like you would a business card. Always have something available to people. That's the best thing. I say also you should share links with them and share the videos with people, but sometimes people want something tangible in their hand in order to take it seriously. So they may end up watching the videos on the internet anyway, but only because you gave them something tangible in their hand. Give them a CD, give them a USB, introduce them to the app, and little by little you'll see some change. Why? Because we teach Torah. That's Torah. It's not Torah that's being catered to low or high people. It's simply Torah. It's Torah as it's supposed to be. Politically incorrect, politically correct, those things are not part of our consideration. What we think about is Torah, and Torah only. So if you have wicked people that are wicked as a result of ignorance, bring them up to the Torah. Bring them up to the Torah by providing them the Torah, either by you speaking it or by letting us do the job. But if they're wicked because they hate the Torah, because they're openly homosexuals, because they're Amalek, because they're literally these psychopaths that call themselves rabbis and other types of fake religious people that distort the Torah and tell you you're allowed to do a bunch of things that are forbidden, these people, they're Amalek. You have to run away from them. And if that means you have to move, then move. If that means you have to break a partnership, break a partnership. If that means you have to get divorced, get divorced. Why? There is no fixing Amalek. There's no fixing Amalek. They can fix themselves, but you can't fix them. And you don't have, none of us have, enough Torah strength to survive the battle. None of us have enough Torah strength to survive the battle with Amalek. None of us. Which means we have to save ourselves first. Pikuach nefesh. Save yourself first. Break off that relationship. You could leave a CD for them. You could send them links from a distance. But to have a close relationship, you meet them, you talk to them, coffee, dinner, all that stuff on a regular basis, run away from that. Why? It's only a matter of time before they impact you. Just like they did that rabbi that used to be a good rabbi, but now today's a fake rabbi, or many, many other people. I'm sure that many of the fake rabbis started off good, but only over time became fake. Why? They lowered the Torah, and therefore the Torah did not protect them. Rabotai Karim, Torah is the only thing we have in the world. It's the only thing that could help us in the world. We have to protect it with all of our might. The only way that we can protect it with all of our might is if we don't change a single thing. This is what Torah says. This is what our sages explain it says. That's it. This is what we comply with. Agree, disagree, it's not part of our consideration. Why? They're smarter than us. They're holier than us. They know more than us. That's it. Let's just rely on them. Surely they asked the same questions as us. Surely they had similar difficulty to us. They still continued. And that's what the Stipler Gaon says. Listen, you realize that the Rambam was a genius. Even the Goyim say he was one of the biggest geniuses that ever lived. You realize the Gaon of Vilna was not called a Gaon, a genius. You realize that the Ramban, the Rabbeinu Yonah, the Rosh,
the Rabbi Netanya sheets, the Yavits, all of these giants, these are all the well-known geniuses around the whole world, not just in the Jewish world. You realize that, right? So obviously they're geniuses and they're smarter than you, right? Okay, so if all of these smart geniuses had the same questions as you, and not only stuck to the Torah, but glued themselves to the Torah to the point where they wanted nothing else but Torah, isn't that enough? Isn't that enough of an indication of what's the right step for you to make? If someone tells you no, that may be a sign of Amalek for that person. If someone tells you you need more evidence than that, that's definitely a sign of Amalek. Why? Because it doesn't make sense. The way we decide in life is not based on knowledge that we possess in most cases. Why? Because we don't have enough time to have knowledge about everything. You don't have enough time to know everything about the building to know whether it's a good building. So you rely on appraisers, on architects, on engineers, and so on and so forth. You don't have enough time to know everything about the business, so you rely on stock analysts, on research papers, on fund managers, and so on and so forth before making an investment. You don't have enough time to know everything about medicine before you take the medicine to know, you rely on the doctor, on the pharmacist, on the pharmaceutical companies, and so on and so forth. You don't have enough time to know everything about practically anything. We rely on experts. We rely on experts whether we like it or we don't like it. You may not like a certain type of expert. You may not like lawyers. You may not like doctors. You may not like government. You may not like all types of other professionals. But the bottom line is, even if you don't like a lot of experts, you still rely on many others. All of us do. We have to. Why? Because there's not enough time in a day for us to know everything about everything. It's just not. So just like we rely on experts in most things in our life, it behooves us to rely on the experts when it comes to the Torah. The experts being the Chachamim that toiled and toiled throughout their entire lives, decade after decade, day and night, without breaks, in order to not only know the truth, but know it well enough that they can teach it to school children like us at a level that we can understand. When you have people that are anti that, those are people you have to run away from. Those are people that you have to simply cut ties from. Why? They're lost causes until they themselves change, perhaps by some miracle from Hashem, like that person that we talked about today. But you have to protect yourself. If they're not quite that bad, they're just ignorant, try to help them by bringing them the authentic Torah as it is, by bringing them the truth as it is, and see how little by little they'll change, just like we've had thousands upon thousands, Baruch Hashem, of people not only change themselves, but tell me about how they changed their parents and their children and their cousins and friends and colleagues. Little by little, every Baal Tshuva that teaches Torah authentically becomes a domino effect where they're building communities all over the world based on the Torah teachings that we have in Australia, in India, in Israel, in the United States, in practically every state, in England, in Canada, in all of these countries. You literally have one guy, 2 people, 4 people, 8 people, and it keeps growing. Why? They're simply listening to the Torah and pressing share. Exactly what you should be doing every time you watch our shiurim. Listen, share. If you could donate to support it, that's also good too. But even more important than any donation you could ever give, share the lectures. At least give people an opportunity to see the truth for the first time in their life and remove themselves from the status of Amalek. Remove themselves from the status of being a lost cause Share the lectures with people. But in the meantime, protect yourself. Don't put your life at risk, meaning your spiritual life. Make sure that you do everything possible to save yourself and not bring yourselves down with everybody else. Be'ezrat Hashem, this too will give us the strength to not only do more tshuva ourselves, but have the strength to help more and more of the right people do tshuva, the people that want to do tshuva, the people that want to change, the people that are open to change, and to run away from all of those wicked Amaleks, whether they have a beard and a hat or they don't, whether they're male or female, whether they were born religious or not, doesn't really make a difference. Rabotai Karim, there are many, many wicked people out there that are working hard to destroy the Torah and everything that resembles it. Run away from those people. Don't watch their videos. Don't support them in any way. And the reason why is because anyone that supports those people, whether it be financially or even by watching their videos and pressing like, even if you don't press like, giving them more confidence because they have another view, attending their lectures so there's another seat taken up. Anyone that supports these wicked people will be severely punished for being a partner in the crime. You have to know that when we watch any of the short videos and clips of different people that we expose, we're not watching it for entertainment. We're watching it like a research paper. We're watching it like doctors are watching a autopsy. We're watching things in order to dissect it to see what's right and wrong. You should not be doing the same thing. Why? First of all, you're not a public speaker. Number two, there's really no reason for you because you have a limited amount of Torah time because you work, because you do a lot of other things. And also because you could hurt yourself by listening to a lot of this heresy. And it can hurt you. So be careful. Be careful with your Kiruv. Be careful with your learning. Be careful with that precious neshama that you have. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants each and every single one of us to get closer and closer to Him, and surely does not want us to put ourselves in harm's way. Be'ezrat Hashem will continue learning later this week or tomorrow. Tomorrow night we'll have the questions and answer session to Stump the Rabbi. Prepare your questions. And again, a reminder for everybody that wants to support the campaigns, go to our website, be'ezrathashem.org, or you go to the Tikkun HaBRIT website for the campaign, tikkunhabrit.live. Or the best thing in the world is always to watch our lectures and share our lectures from the app. Go to be'ezrathashem.org/getapp, GETAPP. Download the app in Android or in iPhone and share the lectures from the app, because the app generates a link, a unique link from the app, so that way you're not only giving a person the fish to eat and be satiated with his spirituality, but you're also teaching him how to fish by forcing him to download the app so you continue watching more and more lectures. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.
You know when you have a dream and you see a pretty woman? You've had that? Now you never actually see an ugly woman in dreams. It's always a pretty woman. And by the way, it's always the same woman for all of us. All of us have a dream of the same exact woman. And she's more dangerous than the Satan himself. Who is she? You're not even allowed to say her name. What are you gonna call her for?
It functions very much like drugs. People are addicted to it.
I tried to quit dozens of times, hundreds of times.
My fantasies and stuff, they're not mine anymore.
Cabinet ministers, judges, diplomats, even one of the country's top spies. These men are accused of some of the most sadistic child sexual abuse imaginable on hundreds of victims.
It shouldn't take over your whole life.
If you satiate it, you're never gonna have enough. If you starve it and only feed it when it's permissible according to the Torah, you're always gonna be happy.